Welcome to the Touch MBA Admissions Podcast, where we discuss all things related to MBA admissions and how to get into your number one school. If you want to know more about this program, check out our website at touchmba.com. Welcome to the Touch MBA Podcast. I'm your host, Darren, and it's my pleasure to introduce our next guest, who represents the first UK MBA program to be on the podcast, Mr. James Barker, who is MBA Admissions Coordinator for Judge Business School, the University of Cambridge. James has worked for the Cambridge MBA program for over 5 years, so I'm sure he'll have a lot of great insights into the program. Welcome to the show, James.
Thanks, Darren. It's good to be here.
Let's get straight to it. What makes the Cambridge MBA unique?
Well, I think for me, the thing that makes the Cambridge MBA unique is the opportunity to study with 150 high-caliber individuals as part of a practical and entrepreneurial program at the heart of one of the world's leading universities.
Short and sweet. Could you unpack what you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk about two things. So I'll talk a bit about the community and the way that we recruit our students, and also a bit about the experience of being part of the university. I think the emphasis on the high caliber individuals is important because with a class of 150, we can really hand select those people that we want to bring onto the program. So diversity is, of course, very important to us, but with the Cambridge MBA, you can be guaranteed the diversity is actually with added quality as well. So we're not taking people just for the sake of the fact that they're a bit different, but they have a real and genuine contribution to the learning of the peers in the class as well. As part of the university, of course, you get to interact with those from outside of the business school. So we really encourage our students not to think of themselves as just an MBA, but as being a member of the University of Cambridge. And being one of the world's top 3 universities, you have to imagine the level of resource, opportunity, and networks that can provide to you.
Yeah, and what sort of connections can MBA students make with this wider community in Cambridge in a 12-month program?
Well, actually, Darren, that is one of the challenges that some of our students face. So one of the things that, again, we encourage you to do before you even come onto the program is to really think about what you want to get from this year. It's a very intensive year and it will fly by very quickly. So it's important to really hand select at the beginning the things that you really want to focus on during that MBA year. So some of our students want to really focus on the job hunt, so they pay close attention to that. Others will want to get involved in politics or cultural activities or sporting activities. Others will want to take part in the intellectual life of the university, so be it through listening to guest speakers, joining the debating union, or speaking to people in their college who are maybe studying in a different discipline area.
Yeah, I found it fascinating that 27% of your class of 2012 came from a political science or law background. I've never seen that from an MBA program.
Indeed. So the current class, which we call MBA 2012, is actually made up of roughly 1/3 students from arts and sciences, one third from arts and humanities, 1/3 from business and economics type degrees, and then 1/3 from engineering and science degrees. So when we say that we have a diverse class, we genuinely mean a broad spread of people with a wide range of interests to bring to the program as well.
Do MBA students actually live on campus?
Well, when you think of Cambridge, there is actually no such thing as a campus per se. So the university was founded 800 years ago. So the city and the university are almost as one. So Judge Business School has its own building where teaching is done and where obviously there's the offices and the administration. But then the Cambridge MBA students are also members of a university college. So there are 31 constituent colleges that make up the University of Cambridge, and all MBAs become a member of one of these. If you come as an individual student, so without a family or partner, yes, the chances are you would live on the campus site. If you come with family or with a partner, then maybe you'd have to look outside, but you'd still be a member of one of these 31 colleges.
I see, I get it now. And are there any new exciting developments with the Cambridge MBA this year?
Actually, we're fairly stable at the moment. So I think with being a relatively young program, only 20 years old, we're now very conscious of our niche and what our program stands for and what it represents. So actually, we're having a few years of stability and focusing on making sure that we maintain the quality and the feel of the program. In terms of things that are ongoing at the moment, if people are following the social media streams, they may see some information soon about the Global Consulting Project. So this is a project that all students do in the second semester, and that's about to be undertaken. So keep an eye on the social media feeds for all the latest information on that.
Yeah, and I have to say, James, that I really found your website to be outstanding. I found all the information I was looking for within a few seconds, and Your program has clearly embraced all the social media, from SoundCloud podcasts to Facebook to Twitter to videos. So I definitely encourage those of you who are interested to check those channels out. But if we could just go back for a second to what you mentioned that Cambridge knows what its niche is. What exactly is that niche?
Well, I think what we're looking for are people with good quality work experience who are willing to operate within a collaborative environment. So we're not under any particular pressure to grow the class at the moment, so the focus is very much on quality of experience and how that can then be supplemented with the learning and teaching of a good quality general management MBA. Supplementing this, as I said before, we're looking for people with an open mind. So these are people who are willing to take part in the wider university activities. So we're not so focused on people who are purely here just for the business side of things or the career side of things. But of course, that's exceedingly important for an MBA candidate. But I think we offer something a bit more than that. I think too, we offer something that's quite special in terms of the entrepreneurial space. So the city of Cambridge is at the heart of one of the UK's leading entrepreneurial areas. So it makes sense that we leverage that as part of the MBA course itself. So I think that when the students leave us, even if they're not looking to form their own business, they think in an entrepreneurial way. And by that I mean they can be innovative, creative, and reactive.
That's great. And yeah, you beat me to my next question, which is, why should MBA candidates get an MBA in Cambridge and the UK in general?
Indeed. Well, I think speaking generally about the UK programs, they tend to be a bit broader in terms of their approach than maybe some of the courses that you might see in the USA. As being one of the main areas that people may also be looking to. I think also, in particular, for Cambridge, as I said before, we have the advantage of being at the heart of a great university, and also there's a very buoyant and stable economy in the city as a whole at the moment. Talking again about the UK, it's also advantageous if you have any desire to work in the UK after the MBA, to study in the UK itself as well. So there's been a lot of talk recently in the media about the tightening of the student visa controls, but actually if you wish to work in the UK after the MBA, it is to your advantage to study here first rather than studying in the USA or elsewhere in Europe.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more details about the visa arrangements when we talk about careers for Cambridge MBA students. But if I could just focus on one more aspect of your program, looking at your site, when we looked at what is unique about the Cambridge MBA, you mentioned, of course, the Cambridge community, but you also mentioned a practical focus. And I noticed in your curriculum that you have a Cambridge venture project, a consulting project, and a capstone project. Could you talk a little bit more about what each of these means or entails?
Yes, so the first project that we offer on the course is the Cambridge Venture Project, and that happens within the first semester, so actually within 2 weeks of starting the program at Cambridge. So you work with your pre-assigned study group on a pre-assigned project with a local startup. So as I said before, this is all about leveraging our connections with the local entrepreneurial scene. So this could be any project from, it's normally a kind of take-to-market type idea, but it could be anything from a man with an idea in a lab, or it could be a product that's been a bit further developed. So the challenge there is obviously to get to know the client well and also to learn how to interact in a diverse team. So you'd be working with your study group, and you would not be with other people with a similar background. So we try and make sure there's a blend of people with different nationality and industry experience. So that's an interesting challenge for the students actually in the early stages of the program. In the second semester, we have the Global Consulting Project, which is again a real-life consulting project, but this time for a international type organization. So it could be a finance firm, it could be something in industry, or it could even be an NGO. But the idea behind this is that you are working with a slightly more complex organization and probably on a slightly more complex problem. For this project, you can actually choose your team or select your team, and you can also pitch for the project that you most wish to do. So again, it's an opportunity for you to sample a new industry, a new function, or a new sector, or also just to leverage the experience that you've had before, maybe with a different organization.
Do many of your MBA students end up moving into a consulting company or a consulting role? Because I noticed that there is an emphasis on numerous consulting projects in the curriculum.
Indeed, I'd say roughly a quarter of our students go into consulting, but as I'm sure we'll talk about on the career side later, there's no typical path through a Cambridge MBA. So I think that one of the things that makes us unique is that we take people very much as an individual, and we help them through the process of enrollment, then through the process of studying on the program, and then hopefully on the process of the career outcome too. But we're definitely not the kind of school where I could say that all of our students typically do this or they typically do that.
James, if we could talk a little bit more about your admissions process, can you walk us through the life of an application in your office from an operational standpoint? So what happens between the time an applicant clicks submit and the time the committee offers a final decision?
Well, the application should be submitted as part of one of our 5 application deadlines that happen throughout the year. So we operate a staged admissions process. Once an application is submitted, we give over our time to reading the applications. So normally the candidate will have an outcome, be it positive or negative, within 2 or 3 weeks. As part of that reading process, there may be the opportunity to speak with us. So if we have any doubts about the application, we may call you to get a greater sense of the application as a whole so that we can make an informed decision rather than making quick decisions based on the information presented. Once the decision is made, then the fortunate candidates who are called for interview will come to campus, hopefully, 3 or 4 weeks afterwards for a full suite of events. So this includes a college dinner, it includes the opportunity to speak with career services and the program team, and also to meet 25 or 30 other candidates. So it's a really valuable opportunity to understand the program in greater depth and also see the kinds of people that you might be working with as part of our collaborative program. Once the interview has taken place, a decision will be given within 3 or 4 days. So all in all, it's quite a quick process, probably maybe 6 weeks between the point of submission and a final outcome.
Do candidates have a better chance if they apply in earlier rounds? I noticed that the Cambridge MBA has 5 rounds.
Actually, there's no particular difference between the different rounds. So we take an even number of students between the 5 rounds. And that's not a conscious or a quoted choice. It's just the way it organically falls into place every year. We see a bit of a peak in round 3, but then we also interview more people and make more offers at that time as well. The advantage of applying early is that it allows people greater flexibility when going for scholarships or funding opportunities, and it also broadens the range of Cambridge University colleges that may still have places for MBA candidates.
I see. So for candidates who want to apply for scholarships, would you advise them to apply before round 3 then?
Absolutely. So particularly for some of the university scholarships, you'll see deadlines on our website which detail the earlier application deadlines. For some of the very elite scholarships for the university where they're looking for genuinely the best of the best, some of those applications fall very early, even before Christmas. So as part of the application planning, the candidates should also be looking at the scholarship opportunities that they may wish to go for and plan their timing accordingly.
Great, and I'll be sure to link to your scholarship page in the show notes. So for those of you interested in scholarships, definitely check that out. James, when I was looking at your admissions requirement page, I realized that you guys have quite a high standard. You have a minimum work experience requirement of 3 years. In terms of your academic performance as an undergraduate, you require candidates to fall into the top 25% of their class or have above a 3.3 GPA or be first class or upper second class. And for your language requirements, IELTS and TOEFL, your minimum scores are also quite high. So what would you advise candidates who either fall very close to these minimums or slightly below them?
Well, it becomes a lot more competitive if you are not meeting the actual minimum requirements. So if we take them in turn, obviously the academic requirement is high because we are the University of Cambridge and the MBA has to be aligned with the quality of the academics of the University of Cambridge as a whole. If you score slightly lower in your GPA than you may have thought capable of, then of course a high GMAT score could compensate for that. With regards to the GMAT, the current class average is 680. So that should be the benchmark for any candidate. Realistically speaking, the mid-range of 640 to 720 should be the target, and it's quite unusual for us to look at anything below 600. But as said, there's no official minimum score that we require. In terms of the IELTS or the TOEFL, if you fall slightly below what we're looking for, because I'm aware that it's a very high English requirement, then you may still apply. But of course, we may ask you to either retake that test later or undergo an assessment with our University Language Centre. So there are ways of circumventing that.
Yeah, and I also noticed that for last year's class, the average work experience was 6.5 years. So what would you advise candidates who have 3 years of work experience and are debating whether to apply to the program or not?
Well, the candidates who have 3 years work experience that we admit all have very high quality experiences that they're going to be bringing to the table. So you have to be realistic about your profile and what you've done to date and see whether you've done something that could be classed as being exceptional. So that could be amazing progression through your company. It could be some interesting international experience, or it could be taking on great responsibility in a particular project or in team management. But again, I just urge the candidates at that level to be realistic about their experiences to date. The reason why we offer a more experienced cohort is that it enables the candidates to learn from their peers. And it also means that we are confident that they can cope with the rigor of an intensive one-year program. So it's to the advantage of the individual to wait if they want to join the program, so then at least they align with the peers later on.
And if those candidates with 3 or 4 years of work experience, think they have a pretty good background, a pretty impressive background, but aren't sure where they fall in comparison to their classmates, can they get in touch with your office to ask about their profile?
Yes, they can email a resume with any particular questions that they may have. So we don't do a general CV screen, but if they have specific questions about their profile, then of course we'd be willing to answer those.
Great. So I'll be sure to link to that admissions email in the show notes.
Fantastic.
And James, I also noticed that the Cambridge MBA requires one peer recommendation, which I found quite interesting. Who should candidates approach for that peer recommendation?
Yes, well, within that context, we're looking for someone who can comment on your ability to work as part of a team. So this should be somebody who's worked with you on a day-to-day basis within your company or within another organization. So really, it's to gain a sense of how you'd be as part of our collaborative and teamwork-orientated approach to the MBA.
Okay, and what 3 things can applicants do to improve their chances of admission?
Well, I think for me, it comes down to research, research, and research. So that's a bit of a cop-out answer when you say 3 things. But I really genuinely do believe that students should be looking to be preparing for 12, maybe even 18 months before they come to apply. So explore the website, explore our social media feeds. This will allow the individual to see how they may align with the program and also see how their aspirations and what they want to gain from an MBA may be offered by Cambridge. So we know that we're not for everyone, so it's up to the students to do their research in advance to see whether there might be a fit for their particular career plan. Similarly, you should also be thinking about funding in that time as well. So as part of the research process, that should all come in there. And then finally, that should allow you to do one of the key things, which is to write compelling essays. So often an application will fall short where the essays are not convincing, or if they are written in a style that is not particularly compelling. So as part of the research process, you should be thinking about your experiences, why you feel an MBA is right for you at this point in time, what your contribution to the program will be, and what you hope to gain from the program as well. So the research process should feed into that eventual essay writing process.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice for candidates who aren't just applying to the Cambridge MBA, but to any top MBA program. You mentioned that candidates should research funding. What percentage of your class gets scholarships, and what are your average scholarship amounts?
I estimate that around 40 or 50% of our students will gain some form of bursary from the Cambridge MBA itself. But I should advise candidates now that these are normally in the range of £5,000 to £10,000. So we're not talking about half fees, let alone the full fees. So candidates really have to come in with a funding plan in place to think about how they're going to be financing their MBA. Some of the wider university scholarships are a bit more generous, but again, these are all listed on the website and should be explored by the candidates to see which ones they fit with and see which ones they may be eligible to apply for.
Got it. And so how can applicants improve their chances of winning a scholarship? I mean, does it really come back to research and knowing what options are available at Cambridge?
In terms of the scholarships, some of them have a GMAT requirement, so again, it might be worth focusing on that particular component. For some of the university scholarships, there's an academic requirement. So obviously, you have to have performed to a certain level in your first degree. But again, yes, it's also worth researching what the opportunities may be in your home market. So every year, students will come onto our program with money that we did not know existed from either local governments or local organizations or even in their own company as well.
Okay, and are those scholarship offers made along with the admissions offer, or do candidates first have to secure a place within the program and then apply for the scholarships?
Again, this varies, but if we talk about the Cambridge MBA bursaries, then these are made at the point of offer. But even then, if you are not made a bursary offer at the point of admission, you can still make a request for financial aid via a form that we have. So there are various ways of accessing financial aid throughout the process, but as I say, it does vary as to when these are actually awarded.
Would you recommend any loan options for international students?
Well, I think this is something that the individual student needs to research for themselves and to make an assessment of the costs involved. There's no loan scheme currently available through the Cambridge MBA itself.
And so international students aren't able to get loans in the UK, right?
The majority of international students will take loans in their home market.
Okay, so if we could shift the spotlight over to careers, because of course all MBA candidates are concerned about getting a great job after they graduate. What is the Cambridge MBA's reputation with employers in the UK and abroad?
Yeah, I think the Cambridge MBA has a very strong reputation with a broad range of employers. As I said earlier, we have no such thing as a typical profile that we're looking to send out into a particular career path. So it's important that we have a broad range of relationships with employers. So we offer various ways of engaging. So we offer the opportunity for employers to come onto campus. We offer the opportunity for employers to post vacancies on our jobs portal. But then we're also being very proactive in doing a lot of business development work at the moment. So promoting the value of our MBAs to employers, particularly actually in Asia at the moment, but also in Europe as well.
Interesting. And can I ask how you're doing that?
Yeah, it's just through making connections and making sure that the value of the Cambridge MBA is known to those people who are recruiting MBA level graduates.
Okay, so roughly how many students of that 150-person class stay in the UK to work?
Yeah, it's roughly 45% who remain in the UK at the moment. So that's actually a figure that's been on the downward trend in the last 4 or 5 years. But that's mostly because people are now more willing to leverage opportunity back in their home market. So obviously the economy in Asia has been more buoyant than it has been in Europe. So that's one area where we've seen a lot of growth in terms of people returning to utilise their previous experience in those markets and get great jobs back at home. That said, if students wish to remain in the UK, it's still possible if a job has been secured within 3 months of completing the programme. The company then just has to sponsor them to remain in the UK. But the kinds of companies that work with Cambridge, they're all going to be sponsoring companies.
This is related to the Tier 2 visa, right?
Indeed, yes.
So after a Cambridge University student graduates from the program, he or she has 3 months to find a job.
Indeed so. I mean, that sounds like quite a challenge, but the last data set that we had showed that 97% of all job-seeking students were employed within 3 months of finishing the programme. So my view is that if you wish to remain in the UK, Cambridge is as good a place as any to gain an MBA in order to do that. Great.
And can you highlight the 1 or 2 ways your career services helps your students find jobs and opportunities?
Yeah, sure thing. So, I mean, obviously the first way is in actually bringing the opportunities to the students. So that could be in terms of on-campus recruiting events. So we actually had a full suite of bookings for the 2012-2013 year. And again, a wide range of companies coming onto campus, from leading consultancies, leading financial firms, and also leading firms in industry as well. As I said before, we also offer the jobs portal. So companies can place vacancies on our secure portal and also review the CV profile book that we have. So this is the resumes of our students, and that's accessible to the recruiters as well. I think the second way that we help the candidates is also with skills for life. So we're not really just about that first placement, but we're thinking about what you're going to be doing in the years after graduation. So the Career Services team is there to also counsel on job interview skills, cover letter writing skills, negotiation skills, all of those things that are going to help the graduate to be successful in their future career path, and not just about getting that first placement.
The Cambridge MBA doesn't have an internship period, correct?
That is correct.
But I saw on your website that many of your students were able to switch into different industries or different functions without doing an internship first.
I mean, I think this is the advantage, Darren, of having the more mature cohort. So with 6 or 7 years behind the individual, they're in a position where they're a bit more flexible in terms of the skills that they already have. So complemented with an MBA, it enables them to make these transitions.
There's been a lot of good information covered on this podcast so far, but how can someone who is interested in the Cambridge MBA get in touch with a student or alumni to get a first-hand sort of perspective of the program?
Well, this is actually something that we help the candidates with later on in the process. So if they come to apply and they are called for interview, they will immediately be connected with some relevant students or alumni, either from the same nationality background or the same industry background. So that tends to happen later on. But of course, in this day and age, with all the social media and the networks out there, it's more than possible for the individuals to do the research for themselves and track down people that they wish to talk to. But officially as part of the service, we offer that later on once the application is made.
And on that note, for students who can't make it to Cambridge for the interview for whatever reason, are you still willing to interview them?
Oh, absolutely. So yes, we also offer the phone interview if at all required. But I think the emphasis is really on the opportunity for the student to make the right choice for themselves. And that's what we try and offer through the interview day experience. So that's why there's an advantage to coming to Cambridge. So there's no advantage in terms of obtaining a place, but it helps the candidate later on to make that final decision for themselves. I was also going to say that another way of really engaging with the students is to check out the social media, so the Twitter, the Facebook and the YouTube. I think these really give a sense of what the students have been doing and why the things that we offer are important to them. So when we say that we have a particular component on the program, well, you can hear from them why that was valuable to them and what they gained from that experience as well.
In closing here, is there anything else about the Cambridge MBA that you wish more candidates knew about?
Well, I think one of the hidden things on the program still at the moment is the concentrations, which is one of the core components of the curriculum that happens at the very end of the course. So a lot of focus is given to the practical projects and to the electives. But then also in the final semester, you choose one of 8 concentrations in order to tie together the learning from across the year under your chosen sector theme. So I think that's a really important part of the program. So you work with your team and also an industry expert coach to do that. So I think this is really where the practical nature of the program is honed down in a final way, but then also led by that leader that is in place for you to use.
And what are those 8 concentrations?
The 8 concentrations, you're putting me on the spot here, Darren, because I can always remember 7, but not 8. So we have finance, we have strategy and marketing consulting, we have international business, healthcare management, arts and cultural management, beyond profit, energy and the environment, and entrepreneurship. So those are the 8 that we have. So they tend to reflect obviously the core strengths that any MBA would probably hope to gain from an MBA experience, but also the research and teaching expertise of the school as well. So particularly in those more niche areas such as the healthcare and also the arts and cultural management.
Yeah, an interesting one there is beyond profit. What does that mean?
Well, the Beyond Profit concentration encourages students to think how the various skills and concepts that they've learned during the course of the year might be applicable to the charitable sector or to NGOs. There's actually a really great video on our YouTube channel of the leader of that concentration, Dame Sandra Dawson. She's actually a former director of the school as well. And in that YouTube video, she talks about what she feels the value of the concentration is, and also how she guides the students through the course of learning as part of that concentration as well. So that's actually a really great video to see.
Great. I'll be sure to link to that video in the show notes. James, finally, MBA candidates are often asked, what 3 words would your friends or family use to describe you? Well, what 3 words would you use to describe the Cambridge MBA?
Well, I think the 3 words are probably going to be coming through loud and clear through this podcast and also through the website and also our social media. So the words that I would use would definitely be flexible, collaborative, and practical.
Great, James. Thank you so much for your time and for being on the podcast.
Okay, well, Darren, thanks for having me.
That's all, folks. Don't be shy. If you have questions that you would like answered on the show, let us know at touchmba.com. See you soon.